All right, at this time, I would like to bring up one of our board members, Colonel John Eidsmoe, and he's going to introduce another award winner for us tonight. So welcome, Colonel Eidsmoe.
Thanks, John. I'll be calling on you for the second award statement.
Sounds good.
Good. The Dominus Vitae, or Lord of Life Award, is something that we've been giving for a long, long time in Lutherans for Life. I couldn't even say how long. But it's to honor somebody who has made outstanding contributions to the cause of the sanctity of life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a Lutheran, doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's part of this organization. But we have two that we'd like to honor tonight, and I'm going to introduce them for you. The first of these, let me get the award first of all. Can you hold them? Here's the right one. The first one we're giving to a very, very dangerous man. Here's a wanted poster. That wanted poster appears on the walls of the Southern Poverty Law Center, of the American Civil Liberties Union, of National Abortion Rights, other such organizations, because he has truly been a dangerous man to them, but a great friend to us. The picture that I'm showing you here is actually from an article in 2014 in the New Republic, and the title of the article is, "This Alabama Judge Has Figured Out How to Dismantle Roe versus Wade." I kind of like the subtitle even better. His writings fuel the biggest threat to abortion rights in a generation. Now, I've known Justice Parker for, well, since the 1980s at least. We worked on a couple cases together back then. He was head at that time of the Alabama Policy Forum. He's been a deputy attorney general. He's worked with our Foundation for Moral Law. But when I came to Alabama back in the fall of 1990, and I was staying at the visiting officer quarters while I was trying to look for housing, Justice Parker and his wife offered that I could stay with them. And so I stayed with them for probably longer than they intended. And I think he kind of regretted that. His wife and I would often be up at the piano singing hymns late at night. But at any rate, we've come to know each other very, very well. In the 1990s, you may recall, Alabama was a battleground over the Ten Commandments. We both worked together in that battle over the Ten Commandments. And after the Alabama Supreme Court refused to back Chief Justice Moore, Tom Parker announced that he was going to be running against one of those Republican justices who had refused to back him. He ran against her in a Republican primary. In fact, I told him at that time, "You run against her, if you are elected, I'll serve as your senior staff attorney." He ran and defeated her in the primary and won the general election. And anyway, we worked together in the Supreme Court, and there we saw more of the way he was laying out his strategy. In fact, he made me his senior staff attorney, and this article also refers to me, I have to say, and it calls me the top biblical law commander of the era. I'm not sure what that means, and I don't think it was a compliment, but I took it as one. But anyway, describe the plan that he was laying out for restoring the principle that the very God of Holy Scriptures, the Creator, is the source of law, life, and liberty. And so the plan was, first of all, to have a staff that we would mentor, and already had some good background. Most of the staff, including interns, came from Christian law schools like Liberty and Regent and Handong from South Korea and Oak Brook, where I currently teach. Another strategy we used was writing concurring opinions. You know, when the majority writes an opinion, sometimes a justice that joins with the majority opinion or even concurs separately will write a separate opinion. Justice Parker would vote with the majority in that case, and it wasn't all Republican, and everyone on the court at that time would call themselves at least a conservative. But by taking some of the medical evidence, some of the scholarship and so on, and putting it in the form of a concurring opinion, that means it's in the law books, and future judges can cite it in majority opinions. And the strategy was to isolate Roe versus Wade and demonstrate that in other areas of law, the preborn child does in fact have a right to life. For example, the fact that you can sue for wrongful death for both the mother and the child if a pregnant woman is killed in many states, that it can be a crime to endanger the life of an unborn child, that the unborn child will have inheritance rights in most states. Many states practice capital punishment. If a pregnant woman is on death row, that the execution will be delayed so that she can deliver her child. Lynn Paltrow, who is the executive director of the Advocates for Pregnant Women, said, "What Justice Parker has done is lay out the roadmap for overturning Roe versus Wade." Well, after a couple of terms as a justice on the Alabama Supreme Court, he ran for and was elected Chief Justice, and was Chief Justice at the time that the Dobbs versus Jackson decision came along that overruled Roe versus Wade. But the issue wasn't over. As we all know, the fact that we're here today means that the issue is really still going on. It's just that some of the handcuffs have been taken off us. But we had a most interesting case in Alabama in which Justice Parker played a most interesting role, the LePage versus Center for Reproductive Medicine case. You see, Alabama probably has the strictest pro-life law in the nation. We passed a state constitutional amendment in 2018 that recognizes legal protection for the right to life at all stages, starting with conception. They should have said fertilization, but conception. And went on to say then, with a statute passed a year later that made abortion illegal at all stages. But then we have the issue of in vitro fertilization. There was a clinic where, through some negligence, some frozen embryos were destroyed. A wrongful death action or negligence action was brought against the center because of that. And the question is that a wrongful death? The Alabama Supreme Court ruled that yes, it was, because Alabama recognizes the life of the child from the point of conception onwards, so these fertilized embryos are in fact persons, and someone can sue for their wrongful death. And that was the majority opinion of the court, but Justice Parker wrote an especially interesting concurrence to this in which he set out in great scholarship and great detail the basis for this ruling. Well, it's this life of pro-life advocacy on behalf of the cause of the unborn child, and really at all stages of life, that caused our board to vote to give Justice Parker the Dominus Vitae Award. I'll show you the award here, the picture of Jesus with an unborn child, Tom Parker, Alabama Chief Justice, 2025. Justice Parker, would you come forward and receive your award? I'll take it.
Oh, thank you. I thank you for this award and for the recognition of my work through the judicial system over 20 years. And before I start, I really want to recognize some special guests that I brought tonight, Ron and Amy Stevens. Ron is from my hometown of Montgomery, Alabama, but lives here now. And Amy was the life issue expert at Focus on the Family, and then ran for the Colorado legislature and was elected and served as the majority leader while they had a Republican majority there. So I'm honored to have them here with us. Roe v. Wade was issued on January 22nd, 1973. That same year, a young former hippie named Nancy Honeytree, who had been saved during the Jesus movement and then went on to be a leader in the creation of the Christian music movement, she wrote a song entitled Pioneer. It's about forerunners or trailblazers, pioneers. A few of the verses say, "Uncharted wilderness stretches before you. You travel light, you travel alone. And when you arrive, nobody knows. But the Father in heaven, He's glad you can go. For those who come after you will need the road. What you have done, others will do, bigger and better and faster than you." These verses speak a very evident truth. Those who have persevered on behalf of life, who have led the way, who have carved out the pathway in the wilderness, now see multitudes coming after them. Those who developed the arguments and the organizations, who wrote the books and the essays, who made the films and spoke on radio, who educated and trained the next generation, who prayed and held up the light as a beacon for all, now see the younger acolytes advancing beyond you. The Dobbs decision encourages me for the future of the court and the return to its proper constitutional role. Beyond the legal battle, the next need is to establish the understanding of the sanctity of human life, even at its earliest stages of development. My prayer for this organization is that you'll be able to take up the additional focus of restoring the awe and respect for God-given life, human beings made in the image of God. As another verse of the song Pioneer says, "But you can't look back. You got to keep pressing through. There's a wilderness pathway calling you. It's still calling you. Go with God, and may He bless you along the way." Thank you.
And we have a second award. In Felix Salton's book, Bambi, a book that happens to be a favorite of mine. Now, that's what our author is saying, but it's also a favorite of mine as well. There is a chapter which consists entirely of a conversation between two leaves that are clinging precariously to a tree. Here's part of their exchange. They were silent for a while. Then the first leaf said quietly to herself, "Why must we fall?" The second leaf asked, "What happens to us when we have fallen?" "We sink down. What is under us?" The first leaf answered, "I don't know. Some say one thing, some another, but nobody knows." The second leaf asked, "Do we feel anything? Do we know anything about ourselves when we're down there?" The first leaf answered, "Who knows? Not one of all those down there has ever come back to tell us about it. Let us remember how beautiful it was, how wonderful when the sun came out and shone so warmly that we thought we'd burst with life. Do you remember? And the morning dew in the mild and splendid nights. A moist wind blew, cold and hostile through the treetops. Ah, now," said the second leaf, And then her voice broke off. She was torn from her place and spun down. Winter had come. This is the introduction to an article in Verba Vitae. As many of you are aware, Verba Vitae is a scholarly publication jointly published by Lutherans for Life and by the Institute of Lutheran Theology. And this was an article by Dr. Gilbert Meilaender in the first issue of Verba Vitae. Dr. Meilaender's article is titled, Death in the History of Redemption. But here is a man who has devoted his life to the teaching of the sanctity of life, primarily in the field of bioethics. And what is bioethics? Well, it's the study of the ethical and legal and social issues that arise from advances in medicine and biology and biotechnology. But Dr. Meilaender added another element to this, and that was the spiritual aspects of it, the religious and the biblical aspects, to keep technology, to keep science from becoming what some call Franco-science. Among his writings, most of which took place while he was a professor at Valparaiso University, professor of senior research in theology, but among his books are Christian Ethics, A Short Comparison, Bioethics, a primer for Christians, Bioethics and the Character of Christian Life, Thy Will Be Done, the Ten Commandments, Should We Live Forever? And this title especially intrigues me, Neither Beast Nor God, the Dignity of the Human Person. He also has been a co-editor of the Oxford Handbook of Christian Ethics. In order to do these things, of course, he has the necessary academic credentials, an MDiv from Concordia. Is there any other? A PhD from Princeton. And in the course of all of these, he's an example to all of us. Now, I have to say, as far as getting a higher education like this, there are probably more good reasons not to go to college today than there have ever been. At most universities today, a college education is really nothing but brainwashing. But there are good colleges, our Concordias, Institute of Lutheran Theology over there, the Luther Classical College over there, and our own Free Lutheran Bible College and Seminary. So there are good ones. But at any rate, that has been the nature of his work. A man who has dedicated himself in the course of 80 years to defending the sanctity of life through his outstanding scholarship. So the award this time goes to Dr. Gilbert Meilaender, and he is not able to be with us, and so I'll just display the award here for you. And anyway, this will be mailed to him. And since he was not able to be here, and since sometimes technology doesn't work at the last minute, we decided the best thing was for him to give us a written statement, which I've asked Dr. Fensky to read for us. And when he's finished reading, I might ask you to do this. Just as we gave Justice Parker a standing ovation, I'm going to ask you to give him a standing ovation, and he will appreciate that even though he can't be here with us in person. Thank you.
Do you have it?
Uh-oh. I thought I gave it to you. No. Uh-oh. Here it is, I think. There we go.
I was never in doubt.
This isn't the first time this has happened at this conference, is it?
No. All right, from Dr. Meilaender. I am honored to receive the Dominus Vitae Award from Lutherans for Life, even though circumstances make it necessary for me to receive it in long-distance fashion. That distance will not make it, in my mind, any less meaningful, as I trust you will understand. I am pretty sure there are others who have contributed in more direct ways than I have to the work of Lutherans for Life. But as you no doubt know as well as I do, each of us is called to contribute in a way appropriate to our particular vocation. For me, that has been chiefly in the kind of work that involves teaching, writing, speaking, and even, alas, serving on committees. If the Dominus Vitae award means that some of this has been of use, I am pleased. The work of Lutherans for Life no doubt began in opposition to abortion at the beginning of life. But by now we know that our culture's willingness to welcome death for some has traveled from the beginning to the end of life, where today the welcome has become all too obvious. In the face of these threats at both life's beginning and its ending, perhaps we should recall some oft-quoted words of Richard John Newhouse, who died all too early. In the preacherly cadence of which he was a master, he once said, "We shall not weary, we shall not rest, until every unborn child is protected in law and welcomed in life. We shall not weary, we shall not rest, until all the elderly who have run life's course are protected against despair and abandonment, protected by the rule of law and the bounds of love. We shall not weary, we shall not rest, until every young woman is given the help she needs to recognize the problem of pregnancy as the gift of life. We shall not weary, we shall not rest, as we stand guard at the entrance gates and the exit gates of life, and at every step along the way of life, bearing witness in the word and deed to the dignity of the human person, of every human person. I am confident that his words express our common commitment, and in that spirit, I thank you again for this award." Please. And thank you, Colonel Eidsmoe, for setting that all up and receiving that from Dr. Meilaender.